Hello and welcome to another edition of Start Select. I'm your host Guy Cocker, and boy have we got a jam-packed show for you today. First we're going to fly out to New York to take a look at Max Payne, the director's cut on Blu-ray, which I know many of you will be excited about. And we visit Sweden to talk to the head of Starbreeze Studios, the guys behind the Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena. But first we went somewhere far more local, just down the road in fact, to meet Introversion Software to see how they're bringing Darwinia Plus to Xbox Live Arcade.
Hello and welcome to EA. Oh, it's not EA, is it? Hello and welcome to Lionhead. No, not Lionhead. You. Hello and welcome to Introversion. Come on in.
Darwinia is kind of like a utopian world inside the computer. You control little tiny green stick men, discovered by Dr. Sepulveda as a kind of artificial intelligence experiment. And it's a kind of strategy game. You kind of populate the world, move around, create new items, engineers and so forth, and take them forth. Like I say, it's utopian, so nothing really bad happens. Darwinia was released back in 2004 and won the IGF award, the Seamus McNally award. And around that time, Microsoft approached them to produce it for Xbox Live Arcade. Now, the original intention was just to do a straight port of Darwinia. But then Microsoft, their usual kind of way, they said, can you give us multiplayer? And so we had to kind of squeeze in multiplayer into Darwinia, which didn't work. And what happened was we were creating Multiwinia instead, which turned out to be a separate game. We in turn then approached Microsoft and said, well, we've actually got 2 games now instead of 1. Can we release them as 2? So they said, no, you're doing it as 1. So what we ended up with is actually 2 games in 1 package. Multiwinia, on the other hand, is really a collection of small games.
Each player starts with a home flag. It is well protected by gun turrets. Your aim is to capture your opponent's flag whilst protecting your own. To do this, capture all the flags that link your home flag to your opponent's flag. Capture your opponent's home flag to win the game. Each team is building a giant rocket. It's a race to see who can launch first. First, you must capture solar panels to power your fuel pumps and refuel your rocket. You might have to fight for them. Next, load your rocket with 100 Multiwinian astronauts. A 10-second launch countdown will begin. During your launch countdown, enemy saboteurs will attempt to destroy your rocket. The first player to safely launch their rocket wins.
My favourite one though is Capture the Statue.
The statue is very heavy and it moves very slowly. Be careful not to drop it. Look out for attacking armies who want to steal the statue from you. Carry the statue safely back to your home base to score a point.
We haven't really been told what the final price is or even when the actual release date as far as Microsoft is concerned. We got our internal release date, which is September. That's when we want to complete the game internally.
I'm responsible for coming up with our new video games and doing the primary technical work and architecture, and then seeing them through to finished games. And the games that I've made so far, the Uplink was my first Introversion game, which I made when I was at university.
You're an Uplink agent, a freelance hacker. Your clients, global multinationals. You hack into rival computer systems, steal research data, sabotage other companies, launder money, erase the evidence, even frame innocent people, and all from the comfort of your own home. In Uplink, you are the hacker elite.
Then we had Darwinia and DEFCON and Multiwinia. And I'm now working on our 5th game project, which is called Subversion. It's the longest running project that I've ever done. It's been running since 2002, and it was actually meant to be our 2nd video game immediately after Uplink. But it's just been kind of delayed, and every time we come to work on it, the other games that we're working on just naturally get ahead. And then, but now finally we're actually focusing on it and we're going to finish it. we've learned a lot of lessons about content in video games, and it takes us a very long time to make any content ever. So, like Darwinia, for example, we spent 3 years, and it only had 9 levels, you know. And so, we've been trying to use a lot of procedural content generation, which basically means that we generate the world that the game takes place in from nothing. We start with a completely blank canvas, and we write rules for how to generate the world, and we just run those rules over a long period of time to create a whole game world, which is very rich, but we've never actually manually edited or made. And everybody's game world will be different. And so it's set in like a modern city, so we can generate a 10-kilometer area of city within just a couple of minutes, with skyscrapers and rivers and houses and everything. And then any one of those buildings, you could click on that building and go into that building, and then more detail will appear, the floors will appear, and elevators will appear, and then eventually people and systems that run the building and so on. And so what we're trying to do is trying to make a very large game area with an awful lot of depth as well in any of the areas that you go to, but none of it's been handmade. And then we use that to fill up our world with content. You know, obviously if you handcraft everything, there's a very limited area that your players can go through, and then they hit the edge of your game world and they can't go any further. So you could imagine a scenario where you've got, you know, like a 30-story skyscraper, you know, and we might do the 28th and 29th floors completely by hand and script everything and write all the dialogue and lay everything out by hand. And then at that point we've set up constraints. We've said there's an elevator shaft here, for example, or there's a staircase here, and these are the window types that we've used. And then you run the procedural generation on all the other floors of the building, and it just fills in the building with all the details, you know, really quickly, just like that. And then you haven't had to use your time to produce content to the same quality level as those 2 floors. If we did everything in Subversion that we could possibly do, it wouldn't come out until 2030, and it would be bankrupt about 100 times over by the time we finished it, because it's such an expansive idea. I mean, you could do anything in it in this game world, and so we're quite careful, I think, to pick the targets that we want to go for and pick the things we want to aim for and do them really well. But in terms of expanding the game world after launch, I'd love to do that.
Right, time to give you lucky people something for absolutely nothing. Last week we gave you the chance to win this, a limited edition signed print that we got from Insomniac Games to celebrate the release of the new Resistance 2 downloadable content. All you had to do was email the answer to this question: in which US state is developer Insomniac based? It is, of course, California in the US, and the lucky winner that we drew out of the big hat is Ibrahim Magzi. Congratulations to you, Ibrahim. This will be adorning your wall shortly and no doubt replacing your poster of Gemma Atkinson. This week we've got a fantastic competition to win a Nintendo Wii console, courtesy of Oxygen Games, in addition to their upcoming game Sid the Dummy. The game itself launches on 17th of April, and to celebrate they've given us a Nintendo Wii console, an extra remote and a copy of the game to give away. We also have 2 copies of the game to give to runners-up. So all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is answer this question: who is the developer behind Sid the Dummy? Get your answers to competitions@gamespot.co.uk before the 15th of April, and don't forget to include your name and address so we can send out the prizes if you're a lucky winner. Now let's head over to New York and check out Max Payne and its director.
When Max Payne made his transition to the silver screen, critics and gamers alike were not generally kind. The movie has been recut for its DVD and Blu-ray release on April the 13th, and I flew out to New York for a chat with John Moore, the film's director, to work out why he chose this project, what he thinks makes for a good video game movie, and why he thinks this new cut will go down better than the first. What do you think makes this harder cut on DVD a better movie than the cinema cut?
Well, as I've gone on record before, I had issues with the censoring body of American motion pictures. And I think ultimately this is a glimpse at what fans really love about this movie. This is a truer vision of the movie.
Okay, so why Max Payne?
Why do it?
Yeah, exactly.
The story was compelling to me. You know, there's normally more than 400 people involved in making a movie, and every one of them has to be in love with idea of making that movie. All right, we're all getting paid, sure. But you know what? There are easier jobs in the world. So the reason you do something is because you love it.
Okay, and what did you think the most important thing was to capture about Max Payne on film?
I think that's a very good question. I think the most important thing was to capture this man's singular devotion to justice. Okay, he starts out wanting revenge. But in the end, revenge is not enough. He wants justice. And don't we want people like that in the world?
I think we do. So, what are the challenges specific to making a good movie from a video game rather than, say, from a book or from a script you've seen?
Well, you know, it's funny, I get asked this question, you know. The truth is, every challenge is the same and different. You don't think about, ultimately, about anything else other than creating something that will please an audience. And every script, every book, every, I don't know, you could see a leaf falling in Central Park and get an idea about making a movie about it. Mm-hmm. And ultimately what you want to do is please an audience. And that, you know what, I think that is the ultimate challenge in filmmaking, is about pleasing an audience.
Okay, and do you think that the fact that fans of, say, a video game have a very clear idea of what something should look like, what the story is, and the nature of the characters are,
well, they've made the movie in their own head.
Yes, exactly.
They've all, especially with a video game, because you have a relationship with a screen. When you play a video game, you're looking at the screen, you're in love with the screen, you have that relationship. And how dare somebody else adapt your love? Yes, challenge, difficult, yes. Ultimately, you know, you could, believe me, you could pick an easier job than telling somebody what their girlfriend looks like. And that's basically what you're doing when you adapt a piece of material. You're telling somebody what their girlfriend looks like. Okay. And not everybody's gonna like that.
So what do you think makes for a good video game movie?
A good video game. I think Max Payne had a great plot. And that's why I think it made a good movie.
So why don't you think the movie was that well received critically?
Well, I think critics had their guns out before high noon. I think they were predisposed to not liking it. Because there's a great and boring and tired cliche is that video games don't make good movies. And God forbid a critic would actually have the balls to stray from the pack, and God knows they didn't on this occasion.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you.
Last month, GameSpot UK's Luke Anderson donned his thermal underwear and flew out to Stockholm to meet the developers of the Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena. We'll have a full studio tour for you on next week's Start Select, but as a teaser, here's an interview with the studio's CEO.
So we're here at Starbreeze Studios in Uppsala, Sweden, and I'm here with Johan, who's the CEO for Starbreeze. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cool. Maybe you just start off with a bit of a brief introduction about what the studio is all about, and kind of a bit of a history.
Yeah. Well, the company's been around since 1998. It was started by some sort of garage developers here in Sweden, and now it's grown quite a bit. We're about 100 people. We have a new office now, and we're just about to release our 6th game, the Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena.
They say hope begins in the dark, but most just flail around in the blackness, searching for their destiny. The darkness, for me, is where I shine.
And yeah, we've been working with it in this genre for quite a few years now. I guess it started out with the first Riddick game back in 2004, sort of story-driven action-adventure game with a mix of different genres. And yeah, and then we kept going in that direction with the Darkness that came out in 2007 for PS3 and 360 as well. And now the third iteration will be this new Riddick game that's coming out now in April.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Butcher Bay really kind of put Starbreeze on the map, didn't it? It came out of nowhere, just kind of amazed critics and kind of fans of the Riddick universe. How did that kind of change the studio? What's it been like since then?
Oh, it was a big change. It was actually really tough for us before Riddick came out. We were pretty much out of assignments and out of money, and we were laying off most of our staff in early 2004. And then Riddick came out, and yeah, all of a sudden all publishers were very interested in talking to us, and we got the new Darkness contract, and yeah, we've been growing and expanding ever since.
One of the things about Riddick is that it's almost a kind of assumption that movie tie-in games are always bad, and that kind of bucked the trend and proved that you could actually make a game based on a film that was amazing. Why do you think that was the case? Was it because Vin was so closely involved with you, or how was your approach, I guess, different from what other studios have done with
No, I think we did have pretty much the same two problems that you have with any game based on a movie, that it's shorter production time due to the movie day and date, and it's a much more complicated approval process with the license holder, etc. So it was pretty much a mess during the whole Riddick Butcher Bay production as well with those things. So I'm not quite sure actually why it did work out in the end. I mean, it's a struggle every day to make a good game, and it was exactly the same during that production. So I don't really know why it came out different. I think one difference maybe was that we made a prequel, so it was a little bit more detached from the script changes, etc. that you sometimes have to struggle with when you work in parallel with a movie production.
Do you guys do you find that kind of using licenses is a good way to make games? Because obviously you've got Riddick, the Darkness based on a comic. Do you kind of find that works particularly well for your studio, or?
Yeah, I think. I mean, if you find licenses that the team here is excited about, I think that's the best thing. I mean, it's so much easier to get a licensed game out there in the end to consumers, because it's a brand they recognize and that they already have a relationship with. And for us, I mean, it does create some boundaries, of course, in terms of creation, but you always have boundaries, and even if you start an original IP, after a week you set up those boundaries for yourself because you need them, and then it's not that much different actually to work on an original or a licensed IP. And yeah, I think we've been very happy working on licenses here, and I think we've proven that we can do a good job.
Cool. And then after that, you're moving on to Jason Bourne with EA.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that deal and how that kind of came about?
Well, we've been working with EA for a while before, have another project with them as well, and then they wanted to extend that relationship with the Jason Bourne deal. But I can't say much.
Yeah. Are you guys fans of Jason Bourne? Was it kind of your idea, or was it their idea to do Jason Bourne?
No, we're really big fans of Jason Bourne, so it's a dream project.
That's all for this week's Start Select. Make sure you get your competition entries into competitions at GameSpot.co.uk. And remember, we always love hearing your feedback, so tell us what you think about the show in the comments below. We'll be back next week with our Riddick special, so join us again in a week's time.